There have been many times throughout college in which I felt completely overwhelmed by either the amount or the level of difficulty of a reading.
So there have been times when I get assigned some reading that is either so impenetrably dense or just so long that I know that I cannot finish it to prep for the next lecture.
In college, professors surprisingly are unaware that you have other classes. And because of this, they assign a huge amount of reading, sometimes hundreds of pages a week. And because your other classes, you also have hundreds of pages of reading a week, you won't be able to read it all. And so at that point, you have to go into some sort of reading triage.
Quite honestly, the best way for me to overcome that was to prime the reading. And for me, that meant doing a little bit of research. Personally, Shmoop was my best friend. So what Shmoop is it's kind of like a SparkNotes type website, and they give you really important historical background information, which really helps. So for example, I was reading a book by Stendhal called The Red and the Black, and I did not know very much about the French Revolution. So I went to my friend Shmoop and I learned some of the key vocabulary, and I learned some of the key facts about the war and about the revolution that just I would have not understood. I would have not understood the text without it. So definitely like priming the reading, using these SparkNotes type websites. Wikipedia is great, and also going to office hours, talking to your professors, talking over with somebody who's gone through this material before can really help.
When I was working in an academic support center as a reading and writing coach, I would often have students come in and express that they didn't know how to manage such a large text. And our schedules are busy, we don't have a lot of time, but we're given several hundred pages of reading a week, and there are strategies that you can employ in order to get that done. And one that is often opposed at first, but then is sort of accepted, is the idea of not reading something front to back, but reading it with a purpose, and coming to the reading with a set of questions and saying, these are the questions that I would like to answer while doing this reading. And once you have a purpose for the reading, you won't be reading from front to back. It's not like reading a novel. You're reading something with a purpose. You're extracting information, you're answering questions, and those are the questions that are going to help you in the classroom and help you tackle a large body of reading.
Pre-reading is useful when coming up with a really long text that you don't have a lot of time for, or something that's really dense and technical. Either just kind of doing a quick Google search online for what is this text about, and kind of reading that shorter and pithier amount of information to have a better idea, so that when you're actually engaging with the full text, you have a better understanding, so that you can kind of follow along more easily.
Often students were coming to my academic support sessions asking about how to read different kinds of books. You might be assigned a textbook, you might be assigned a novel, but these different types of books, you need to bring different strategies to understanding them. The textbooks, for example, often have large colored boxes with important things inside of them, and then sort of littered between all of those important boxes is examples of how to use them. So I would often encourage students to read all of the things in the important boxes, and then look at the examples of how to employ those important things.
And so when you get a reading assignment, say it's 50 pages long, chances are it's not all going to be perfectly relevant. And chances are if you have 3 50-page assignments for that class period, there's going to be some of those assignments that are going to be more important than others. So you want to find the paper that's going to be most important. So if your professor is going to be lecturing about Tocqueville, you ought to read Tocqueville. You want to focus your efforts on that. And if it's something specifically in Tocqueville that you are trying to read, or that the professor's going to be lecturing on, what you want to do is find within that reading where it talks specifically about that. But before we get there, I think it's important to, when we look at the book, to not just delve right into the reading, because we're not going to know where we're going. We're going to get lost in the woods, and it's going to take forever. We're going to slog through it. The only way to get through it then is just to read, because you don't know what's coming up. We want to educate ourselves. We want to recon the objective, okay? And so what we do is we start by looking at the reading assignment. We want to look at, if that's presented in the syllabus, we want to look at the lecture it's relevant to and the title of that lecture. All right, that way we know what the professor is trying to get at. Then we take a look at the book, if it's a book, and we start from the outside. We read the cover, we read the back, we read the editor's introduction, or skim it. We read the author's introduction, and then we look at the table of contents. We look at the chapters and see what's going on here. And then we go in there, and a lot of times in academic writing, there'll be subtitles within the chapter itself, and we can break the reading assignment, the chapter down into that. So we can read the introduction to the chapter, and then go in and hit the relevant subtitles within the reading assignment.
If you compare the reading to the syllabus, you look at what the syllabus says the lecture is going to be about, and you just say, okay, it's about XYZ. So you can skim through and find the keywords that relate to what the syllabus says that lecture is going to be about. It makes your life so much easier. It turns 160 pages of philosophical text into about 6 paragraphs of actual meaningful stuff that is germane to the conversation. You don't always have to read everything. There will be times that you can't. But if you have strategies like the one I just said, sometimes just making your own table of contents, a lot of newer books, poli-sci and philosophy books, they have a very sparse table of contents. Pull out a sheet of paper and make your own. And then when you're in lecture, you can pull your book out and reference things and keep up with the conversation.
A phrase we're familiar with in the military is tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. So what that means, how that translates into college is paper writing. So a common thing that you'll be assigned when you're studying is like the classic 5-paragraph essay. It's really anywhere from 3 to 5 pages or so, and you have your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. And so the way we transfer this military-ism, this army-ism, into paper writing is in the introduction, you tell them what you're going to tell them. In the body, you tell them. And in the conclusion, you tell them what you told them. The whole reason being is that the introduction is something of a roadmap for where you're going to go in the rest of your paper. In fact, your introduction should fairly well be able to mark what moves you're going to make within the body paragraphs. And then the conclusion, telling them what you told them, you more or less sum it up. And you also kind of give them an application of where you can go farther with this information.
The greatest thing that I learned about writing essays is called the uneven U. And the concept is based on logical progression. So you always want your argument to be logical. You always want to make sure that your reader can follow and understand what you're saying. So the concept of the uneven U is where you start with kind of a more abstract idea that you've developed, and you move kind of down by providing concrete evidence and facts. And then you move all the way back up, and you are finally able to prove through your logical progression a big final salient point. And that's really helped me in all of my essays. Of course, you want to start with a great introduction and thesis, and then your body paragraphs, and you want to work through those logically, and then you want to hammer it home by telling everybody exactly what you just told them in one big wrap-up.